Now, what I'm about to share with you is a skill set that you can learn called impulse mapping. Impulse mapping allows you to, well, map out your impulses, understand the root issues that lead you to want to go and escape, and rewire your automatic response to them. And I'll show you the importance of this because to understand how to use impulse mapping, which I'll show you how to do, you need to understand the science. Because if you understand the science, you're going to see that one, this works, and you're actually going to want to go and take action. Now, this all works because of a part of your brain that's very underrated that barely anybody talks about called the basal ganglia. Just to kind of give you a recap of how all this works. You probably heard of neural pathways. You probably heard a lot about the prefrontal cortex, how it impacts your actions and habits. And to give you a little bit of a refresher, a neural pathway is like a trail in the snow. It's basically a pathway in your brain that forms when you repeat a thought or action, making it easier and easier and easier to follow each time. And a really good analogy for this is, like I said, the snow path. So if you ever walked in deep snow, I haven't, I'm down in Florida. I've never walked in too deep of snow, but if you have, you would understand that if you're going through deep snow, it's pretty hard to walk through. Right? You have to always think about where you place your feet. You have to keep looking up to see if you're moving in the right direction. It's very difficult. But if you took that same trail every single day, multiple times a day, it would get pretty easy over time. You know, the trail would start to become more defined in the snow. You can just step where you took a step last time when you're walking on the trail. You don't need to look up because you already know you're going in the right direction because there's already a path in the snow. It's a very good analogy because this is what your brain does around certain actions. And when you repeat it enough and enough, you know, want to take that action more and more. Now, what our brain, its decision makings around habits, it doesn't care too much about if this is the most efficient path or the best path. It wants the most familiar path. And in terms of acting out, this actually has profound impacts because this is something that doesn't serve you, but because you're familiar and you know you're going to get a predictable outcome of pleasure or of a reward, you're going to take it instead of taking the correct action. And all we need to do is create a new path in the snow and create new neural pathways around behaviors that actually serve you. Now, the basal ganglia's job is to strengthen and automate these neural pathways, turning repeated actions into actual habits that get reinforced, and stronger, and more automatic. So you can see down below, the basal ganglia habit loops connect sensory signals, or in other words, triggers, to habitual behaviors. So you probably agree that going and acting out is probably not the best path to take. It doesn't serve you. It does give you a predictable outcome, and it has been reinforced over the years of masturbation, pornography, sex workers. It's a strong neural pathway, but it doesn't serve you and it needs to change. So what we want to do is unwire your old response to these triggers and rewire a new response to these triggers that actually serves you. And there's a way to do that, and that's called impulse mapping. This right here is a viewpoint on how to do impulse mapping, and it also gives you a little bit of information on what the pathway looks like right now. Right now, if you get a certain trigger in your life, it can be a visual trigger, it can be a pain or a problem that's going on in your life. It leads your basal ganglia to kick in and be like, okay, if I face this certain trigger, I go and act out. So you get an impulse almost automatically. Like, most people don't understand the deep-rooted issues that lead them to go and act out. All they see is the impulses and the urges that they get. Basal ganglia sends an impulse in your brain to take that neural pathway to go and act out. You go through that process, you go through all those rituals and all those behaviors and steps, and then you all go and act out for a reward of removal of pain or wanting of pleasure. Now, what impulse mapping allows you to do is understand that, hey, there's deeper rooted issues, there's deeper rooted triggers, and when you have to understand what that is, right? So you need to start to ask questions, and I'll show you how to do this in 1 second. This is just the high level. We want to backtrack. So we want to get to the root of the issue, and the way to do that is by using self-talk and by asking questions to uncover the deep-rooted issues. Let's dive into what that looks like. So now that you understand the science, let's get into the actual application. Okay, what do I do with this? How can I rewire my response to these triggers that are leading me to go and act out? So I'm going to be going over a couple of different things here in this video, and And it all starts with some very simple questions. The baseline for everything that we're going to talk about today is self-talk and asking questions to uncover things going on beneath the surface. Now, what are some triggers that people usually have, right? It all starts from particular triggers that lead you to get urges and want to go and act out. And some very common ones are visual triggers. You might get some fantasies or stuff like that. Or, most commonly, and these are the most intense urges you'll ever get, it's when the root issue, the root trigger, is from a particular pain or problem going in your life. And this can be many different pains and problems. This can be a compounding effect where there's many different things going on. It just gets so overwhelming that you're just like, I just need to run. I need to go and escape. So what you want to do when you're either in pain, ideally, right, the speed at which you can identify the true pain or problem going on that's leading you to go and want to act out, the better. But also, if you get an urge, you can still use this process. If you're in the process of acting out, you can use this process because everything leads back to the trigger. So what you want to do is start to ask some questions about what you're feeling. Okay, what pains am I experiencing? What am I trying to run from? How am I feeling right now? And just ask some very basic questions to be able to label the pain. This is step one. If you apply these 3 steps when you're getting an urge or when you're feeling a pain, you will not want to go and act out. This is a very simple 3-step process and it's very effective, stupid effective, more effective than you can even imagine. But there's some roadblocks to using this that add resistance to actually diving into this. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But let's first understand the basics. Let's first understand the 3-step process that ideally we start to use. So again, you label the pain or pains. And from there, what you want to do is start to have a conversation with yourself. Start to hear yourself out a little bit because your body's in pain. Your body's like, hey man, there's something going on that you're not dealing with. Because you're not dealing with it, I want to go and act out. And you need to hear that side of you out. You can't ignore it. You can't repress it. That'd be a very bad thing to do. And eventually it just gets so intense that you have to go and act out. So you want to understand it. You want to hear it out. Say, okay, I understand that I'm stressed or I feel alone or I'm bored or I'm tired or whatever pain that you're going through. But from there, you need to have a conversation around it. Let's take loneliness for an example. This is a pretty intense one. So it's like you ask some questions about what am I feeling? You understand you're lonely. Okay. What now? You want to have a conversation around it. It's like, okay, why am I feeling lonely right now? What's going on? Is this a need that's not being met? And just have an honest conversation around this topic. There's probably a very specific issue going on in your life that you have not addressed properly. And it's making you want to go and act out. And you just want to have that conversation. No judgment is allowed. You don't want to try to find solutions right away. You just want to hear it out first. Imagine like you're talking to a good friend and he says he's going through some stuff. You're not going to, just give him some advice out of nowhere. You're going to hear him out first. You're going to ask some questions. You're not going to judge him. You're not trying to fix him right away. You just want to hear him out and understand. And you want to do the same thing to yourself. You want to treat yourself like your own best friend, for lack of a better word, a safe space to talk about some of these things. So you might go through some conversations of like, I feel alone right now. I'm not happy with my social life. And the thing is, I don't feel capable of getting a girlfriend, or I don't feel capable of having a better social life right now because my life is a mess. I'm going and acting out. I'm doing a bunch of these different things. I feel like I'm not ready. I feel like I'm not capable. I just don't feel confident in myself. Like I have this need that needs to get met, but there's just so many things going on that's preventing me from taking this action. So that's like a starting point. You can go even deeper into that, but you want to hear that side out. You want to be very honest with yourself. And this is easier said than done. And I'll show you how to overcome some of these roadblocks in a second. But you want to hear it out and give your body the opportunity to tell you what's going on, right? You'll uncover it, but you just need to give it the opportunity by asking questions and letting yourself talk about it. From there, you want to take action if need be. Sometimes there's very simple things that you can do. You might not be able to solve the pain right then and there, but you might have a first step. And if you go through this process of understanding the pain and talking about it, you're probably going to want to take that certain set of actions, but you don't necessarily have to. I've, and clients included, have used just the first 2 steps of labeling the pain and hearing it out. And then they're like, oh, Okay, that's all I needed to do. They just needed to have that conversation. That was the only action they needed to take. So just by doing these two things, you might not want to go and act out anymore. But there's some cases where you might want to take a particular action or two, right? Very simple. Like I said, if you do this 3-step process, you'll stay clean. And if you can consistently do this, you're going to get to a point where you can sustain results and you can sustain progress, and you get to a point where you retrain your brain around these particular triggers. Then instead of getting this trigger and going and escaping, you get this trigger and you deal with it properly. So if you do this consistently enough, you'll get to a really good spot where you've carved out a new neural pathway. But instead of leading you to go and act out, you actually respond to that trigger in a way that's satisfactory and leads to long-term success. But the thing is, it's not going to be a perfect process. You will not do these 3 steps perfectly. That's why I have some other things here for you. There's a lot of roadblocks to this, but if you can at least take the first steps in the new path, like that snow path that we talked about, if you can take the first couple steps by doing this and being intentional and trying to use this 3-step method, eventually you'll get easier and easier and easier. It'll get more and more automatic, and you'll actually want to take this course more than the other one. And eventually, this whole neural pathway goes away, and this is your only response to these triggers. Your perspective of the problem can lead you to not want to take these 3 steps. It's very easy, because the thing is, things have to get worse to get better. When you're doing this 3-step process, you're leaning into the pain, and you're not used to that. You're used to feeling this pain and running from it. So when you lean into it and understand it a little bit more, you're like, whoa. I don't want to deal with this right now. It's kind of difficult. Like, it's just so overwhelming. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't think I can. There's just so much going on that it just gets so uncomfortable that you just don't want to take these 3 steps seriously. You just rather not do it. So there might be a roadblock where you've done these 3 steps multiple times and you've seen great success with it. But there's some cases where you don't want to use these 3 steps because it's going to lean into pain. But that's a good thing. If you feel pain when you're doing these 3 steps, you're moving in the right direction. It's okay to feel the pain, right? You got to tell your body and show it that, hey, just because I'm feeling this right now doesn't mean I need to do anything about it. Let's lean into it. It's okay. It's fine. We'll deal with this in due time. It has to get worse to get better. And I have a story when I was going through this. I was escaping the pain like crazy. I was not wanting to face it. And there was a week in my life where I started facing the pain, right? I started leaning into it a little bit just because I had to. Things were getting so out of control that I just had to lean into the pain. And it was hell for a week. I would have all these memories of things that were going wrong in my life that I didn't even realize. And it started to break me down. Right? I was like crying on a day-to-day basis, just so overwhelmed with like, man, this is so much worse than I ever thought it was. But I needed to do that. Once I fleshed all of that out, it was painful, it was sad, it was depressing. But once I fleshed all that out, I actually had a baseline where I was like, okay, I dealt with it. Now what? Right? So it has to get worse to get better. And the thing is, you can speed up this process by changing your perspective on the pain agent. There's 2 types of people, and right now you fall on this side of the category. Right? We want to get you over here. Right now, you probably view these pains and problems in your life as just as that, as a problem. It's difficult to deal with. It sucks. I don't like having these issues. It's just overwhelming. It's an issue and I have to fix it. There's a very negative connotation to the pain agents. And again, that can be stress, that can be boredom, that can be loneliness, it can be whatever you're going through right now that's leading you to go and act out, right? And the example that I chose here was stress and loneliness. You have a very, negative connotation to these 2 issues. But where we want you to get to is viewing these same problem in a different way. You're just taking a look at the other side of the coin. So you're looking at the same issues, but you're seeing it from a different perspective as an opportunity. So instead of viewing the stress in your life, in the loneliness as something that's holding you back and how it's this big issue and how you haven't been dealing with it properly and it's been leading to all this chaos, and instead view it as an opportunity where be like, hey, you know what? Every time that I feel this pain of loneliness, it's actually a good thing. right? Because it's showing me like, hey, there's this thing going on in my life that I can improve upon. And every time that I feel that pain, it's just a reminder for me to be able to do that, right? So you're viewing it as an opportunity. You're viewing it as a good thing. And this does not come naturally. I'll show you how to change your mind on all of this stuff. But again, it's something that if you can change your perspective on the pain, you'll more want to take action. And to show you the importance of your perspective on the pain, I came up with a little hypothetical here. Which person, person A, who views the stress and loneliness as a recurring problem they're struggling with, they haven't been able to figure out, they got to fix it, but they don't know how, it's a problem, it sucks. Or person B, who views the same problem as an opportunity, as a way to get better. If they fix these things, a better life will be there. And each time that they feel this stress and feel this loneliness, it's another opportunity to rewire the response around that and move in the right direction. Who do you think would be more successful when they feel this pain, right? Obviously person B. Who do you think would be more likely to go and escape if they feel this pain? It'd be person A, right? They view it as a bad thing and it only adds to the pain and overwhelm of the situation, so they want to go and escape. I want to remind you that this does not come naturally. This will not be perfect, step one, but none of this has to be perfect. You just have to move in the right direction with this, because the more you do this, the better and easier it's going to get for you. Now, let's go into this personal exercise. I think this is going to be a little interesting. We're going to flesh out why you have this negative connotation to these pain agents, and then we'll try to change your opinion. So let's go through this personal exercise real quick. This is where you can write things down in your life, right? I'll ask you some questions, and you can just kind of jot these things down as we go. So what pain agents are in my life that are leading me to want to go and act out? What are they, if I had to label them? Stress, loneliness, fatigue, boredom. What pains are leading you to want to go and act out? Then when do I feel each one the most, right? Do I feel all these pains right before I go to sleep when I think about life? Do I feel these pains when I get off work and I'm home alone? When do you feel these pains individually? What does these pain agents say about my life? If I'm struggling with this stress, or if I'm going through this season of loneliness, what do I believe that says about me as an individual? What do you think that labels you as? There's probably some beliefs there. That's a pretty strong and powerful question. What is my perspective of the pain? Do I believe I can fix this? Do I believe that I have the capabilities to solve this problem? Do I feel like I'm not ready to solve the problem? Do I feel like I'm not capable of doing it? Do I think it'll be hard and difficult and a grind? Do I think it'll be easy? What is my perspective on the pain? And here is a really good question that I want you to meditate on. Really think about. What limiting beliefs do I have around these pain agents that are keeping me from fixing them? I can't tell you how many people have breakthroughs around questions like this. From this little exercise, from these questions, you're probably going to see a different perspective of the pain that you're going through. You're going to realize that the pain is not the problem. My perspective of the pain is keeping me stuck and making this more difficult. That's probably going to be your key takeaways after this. So how can we change this? Right? Here's another kind of couple questions for you. How are these pains in my life opportunities? Really think about that. Really try to come away with a good answer for some of these. How are these pains opportunities? If they are opportunities, is it bad if I feel the pain? Right? I'll probably say it wouldn't be. If not, what is a better response to that pain? And another question is, who will I become if I face these pains properly? If you take advantage of these opportunities that are going on in your life for you to be able to step up above these challenges, make changes to improve your life, who will you become? Will you be more confident? What areas of your life would improve by taking advantage of these opportunities? Really ask yourself some of these questions, because it leads to a different perspective of the same issue. Now, with this said, this is a starting point for you, right? Hopefully by this video, your perspective of these pain agents have changed a little bit. And if so, it's going to make it so much easier to have these conversations around these pains, because you know it's an opportunity. You know it's going to lead to growth and lead to a better life, right? So this is the thing. I want to give you a couple benchmarks of progress. And if you can chase these things and you see this in your life, you're going to be knowing you're doing the right thing and moving in the right direction. So some benchmarks of progress are, how quickly can you reply to a pain pain or problem in your life? Does it take a week after you relapse to realize, why you wanted to go and act out? Does it take you to be in the acting out process to start to understand why you want to go and act out? Or does it take all the way up until an urge to do these 3-step processes to understand what's going on? Or can you handle new pains and new problems in your life as they happen, right? If you can start to do that, you'll know you're moving in the right direction. The speed at which you reply to these pains and problems is a great indication of your self-awareness, and also is your willingness to kind of move into this pain. Another benchmark of progress, might not seem like it, is it getting worse. If you lean into pain and you feel even more pain because you're talking about it, you're thinking about all these pains and problems in your life, and it's getting worse, that means you're moving in the right direction. You're fleshing some things out that you haven't fleshed out that you needed to. Yes, it's going to be intense. Yes, it's going to be painful, but there will be an end to that. It will get better. You just got to flesh it fully out. So if it's getting worse, you're moving in the right direction. Another benchmark of progress is your willingness to talk about pains that are going on in your life with yourself, right? Do you always come from the perspective of, I got to fix this problem, or I got to change this, or you judge yourself for what you're going through, or are you open and honest? Can you have these conversations around these pains? That's another kind of benchmark of progress. So if you do these things and apply these 3-step processes, it won't be perfect at first, but if you can see these changes going on, you'll know you're moving in the right direction. Right now, you got to think about it like this. I am learning a new skill set, right? I'm learning a brand new skill set. I'm carving out new neural pathways around a trigger that has been reinforced for years, if not decades. Give yourself some grace when using this. It will not be perfect. It will be challenging even, but if you stay consistent with this, if you take a couple steps in the right direction and carve out that new path, it will get easier. And if you want to accelerate this process, do it without the worry of if I'm doing this correctly, am I doing this wrong? You get a bunch of other resources to make sure you're actually moving in the right direction as quickly as possible. What I recommend for you to do is go down below. You're just going to see a link down below and reserve a call with myself. We'll go over your situation. We'll talk about impulse mapping. We'll see what it is that's holding you back from seeing success and identify that. And if I feel I can help you with coaching, I'll go over what that will look like, answer all of your questions, and even get started there. And at the very least, man, no pressure. I'll give you some resources. I'll move you in the right direction, and you'll just get a ton of clarity from that call. So if you want to jump a couple steps, just go ahead and book that call down below to learn more about this. There'll be a bunch of other resources on the following page. You'll see testimonials of guys who have been through the same process, learned impulse mapping, learned the skill set, where they were at beforehand and where they're at now, because this is all within your control. There is a way to deal with this, but you just got to get the right steps. You got to get the right resources. You got to learn a process and have the right support, because even if you do a lot of these things correctly, it can be so much easier if you just have guidance, if you just have someone to talk to outside of yourself to get a third perspective. So if you're serious about this, you want to learn this skill set to not only break free from going and acting out, but just from any escapism in your life, go down below, reserve that call with myself, and I'll be happy to help you. With that said, guys, more content coming out soon. Hope this was helpful for you guys. Yeah, take care.